She was a Caribbean beauty ready for the good life.
She wanted to come to the United States to seek out the American dream.
And he was the man who could make all of her dreams come true.
He was a very attractive guy, and he was in the military.
They appeared to be on a path full of promise until they veered off on a highway to hell.
I called 911. I told him there was a person on my porch that had been carjacked.
She was stabbed multiple times.
The crime ignited a murder investigation that plays like a Hollywood horror film.
She was killed in a field like a pig. Her dream had now turned into a Freddy Krueger nightmare.
Jaws drop as detectives uncover a real-life story filled with lust, greed, and betrayal.
I have never seen a case this strange and this weird. You just can't make this up.
Friday, June 5th, 2009, 5:45 a.m. It's a peaceful morning in the town of Crumpton, Maryland, when local resident John Rolfe and his wife Kim are suddenly awoken by a loud noise.
Help!
I heard a knock at the front door. I peeked out the window.
Please! I need to use your phone. Help, please!
I seen this guy standing there. He looked terrible. It looked like he had been beaten pretty bad.
I need to use your phone. Please help. Please.
Sit down, man. Sit down. What happened?
He says he was carjacked. He needs help.
He had a big gash on his arm. He said the guy that had carjacked him had went after him with a knife.
I just need help, please.
But the most nightmarish part is still to come. The man says that he isn't the only victim.
My wife's still down there.
John and his wife immediately call 911.
I told them you need to bring an ambulance and police.
Yeah, he's cut up pretty bad. He's got a big gash on his arm.
He was just shivering uncontrollably. I never seen nobody like that.
First responders arrive on the scene within minutes and discover that the man is 28-year-old Ryan Holness. He tells them that he and his wife, Sarika, were carjacked around 11:30 p.m. the night before in New Jersey while en route to Maryland.
I told the two paramedics that Ryan Holness's wife was down in the soybean field, and Ryan said that she wasn't moving.
I'll go check on that if you want to wait here. You want to come with me? Go look for his wife.
They went down there to find her.
Minutes later, the two AMTs return from the nearby field.
I asked him, is she all right? And he said, no. That's when I knew it was bad.
But it's much worse than anyone could imagine. Sarika is dead.
She's just lying in the field dead, stabbed multiple times.
The tragic news sends Ryan's world spinning.
When he learned that she was dead, he totally fell apart. He was exceptionally distraught, totally confused.
As Ryan is taken to the hospital for treatment, it seems impossible to believe that this young couple's future had been altered so tragically. Born in 1982, Sarika Dunkley, or Susie as her friends called her, was raised by her aunt on the island of Jamaica.
I didn't have any child at the time, so I would take the responsibility of sending her to school.
After high school, Sarika landed a job as a cashier in a neighborhood pharmacy. Even though she was quiet and shy, Sarika stood out in a crowd.
She was a very pretty girl, and she did get a lot of attention.
Sarika might have had her choice of men, but one day in 2003, she reconnected with someone from her past who'd always brought a smile to her face. Childhood friend Ryan Holness.
They were very, very close in Jamaica. They grew up, they were only 2 years apart.
I always see Ryan and Sarika hugging each other. They were good friends growing up. Very good friends.
Though Ryan had spent much of his childhood in Jamaica, he immigrated to New York in 2002 and had joined the U.S. Navy.
He was a very attractive guy, and he was in the military.
Ryan is a handsome guy. He's a dark, handsome guy.
After hearing Ryan's stories of his time in America, Sarika was smitten with the idea of living there.
Everybody want a piece of America. What you see on TV and stuff like that, you always want a piece of that.
You fine?
Yes, I'm fine.
Well,
Between Sarika's dreams of a new life and their obvious attraction to each other, Ryan decided to fast-track their relationship.
will you marry me?
Yes, I will.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Whoa. Wait.
I heard that he went down to Jamaica and he married her in less than 2 weeks.
Are you happy?
Yes, I'm very happy. Can you too?
There had been a ceremony, and it was a little chapel out in the palm trees of Jamaica.
But their whirlwind courtship hit a heartbreaking snag when U.S. officials denied Sarika's request to join Ryan in the U.S.
She went through a hard time with immigration in Jamaica to come here.
Although their separation was bittersweet, the couple made the best of the situation.
Their relationship was long distance, but clearly he loved her and cared for her. That's why he married her. They spoke regularly. When he would go back to Jamaica, he would see her.
In 2008, after 5 long years and hundreds of heartbreaking miles apart, U.S. immigration officials finally granted Sarika a visa.
I felt that she had a genuine love for Ryan and that she couldn't wait to see him.
Ryan seemed overjoyed by the news, but by that time, he was living with a fellow serviceman in St. Mary's, Maryland.
He was still in the military, so he was on deployment to different countries from time to time.
Until better arrangements could be made, Ryan and Sarika decided she should live with Ryan's mother in Brooklyn.
Sarika was living with me in New York while Ryan was in St. Mary's, Maryland.
The best he could do was to go up to New York on weekends and spend time with her.
Once in the States, Sarika made plans to continue her education. Meanwhile, Ryan's career was taking off. He'd recently been promoted to the rank of Petty Officer Second Class. The couple's future had never looked brighter. Until a road trip toward their new beginning took a nightmarish turn, leaving friends and family completely stunned.
I was devastated, just unfathomable, to even hear of something like that.
Why would somebody want to kill her? Why?
For detectives on the case, the more pressing question is who? Who would want to murder a woman like Sarika? Given Ryan's initial statement, all they knew for certain is that the couple had been carjacked in New Jersey and forced to drive to this desolate stretch of roadway.
They ended up in this rural area, very sparsely populated, no lights. He essentially just attacked both of them.
A CSI team scours the field, collecting any physical evidence they can find.
They were locating Sarika's purse, her sandals and shoes, scattered in all sorts of locations.
The only thing that appears missing is Ryan's car, a 2007 Honda Accord.
Hey, sir. Yes, sir. Can you do an APB for me? Yes. 07 Honda Accord, 4-door.
After issuing the APB, investigators begin the grim task of examining Sarika's body. Judging from her injuries, it looks like she tried to fight off her assailant until her dying breath.
The condition of Sarika's body was quite tragic. Her nails were chipped, and she had defensive wounds on her hand.
He's gonna have some wounds on him.
Scratches, good cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Sarika's body had 58 stab wounds.
Police knew the couple had been violently carjacked, but a more ominous question remained. Just who had targeted them, and why? Nothing could prepare them for the horrific and heart-stopping tale they were about to hear.
I've done 200 or so cases, and I have never seen a case this strange and this weird.
Sarika Holness seemed to have it all. The beautiful Jamaican married her close childhood friend, a handsome naval officer, and moved to the United States to begin their life together.
She came here to live the American dream. Sarika really liked America. She always talked about the opportunities.
But that dream turned into a nightmare on the night of June 4th, 2009, when Sarika was stabbed to death in a violent carjacking. Her husband, Ryan, managed to survive the attack.
Family was in a lot of pain and just wanted answers and just couldn't understand how such a sweet and innocent person, life was taken so short.
For the last several hours, police have been trying to fill in the blanks of what exactly happened. After securing the scene and examining Sarika's body, they combed the surrounding field for evidence.
There were some personal property, included Sarika's shoes, her purse, which had been partially emptied.
While the evidence suggested the couple had been the victims of a robbery gone awry, the murder weapon was nowhere to be found, and plenty of questions still remained. For starters, why had Sarika's killer lashed out so violently?
Sarika was stabbed multiple times. It was brutal.
Not that Ryan had fared much better himself. Rushed to the hospital for treatment, police had yet to obtain his formal statement.
Mr. Holness had a cracked rib and he had injuries to his face and head.
He was also cut with this very large knife, and it looked like a scene from a butcher shop.
Still, after the deadly injuries Sarika sustained, it seems like a miracle Ryan is even alive.
Ryan was a mess. He was in shock, partly, I guess, because of what had happened. It was a very brutal stab wound.
Once he's treated and released from the hospital, Ryan begins by painfully recounting the events of the past 24 hours.
We were enjoying a nice day out, nice night out.
He said it all began around 9:30 p.m. the night before, when he and Sarika left his mother's apartment in New York, bound for Maryland. 2 hours into the trip, they stopped for gas in Cranberry, New Jersey.
After pumping his gas, he realized that, oh, I have to use the restroom.
Hey, I'm running to the restroom. I'll be back.
Okay, I'll be here.
All right.
Sarika is waiting for him to take care of his business. And that's when things start to go awry.
As he headed back to the car, Ryan saw a look of terror in his wife's eyes. Once in the driver's seat, Ryan realized the source of her fear.
He observed a man in his back seat with a ski mask on and a hoodie, with a gun up to Sarika's head.
Don't make a sound. Drive south.
He used some sort of device to change the way his voice sounded.
What he's saying is that it's just a robbery. I'm just gonna take your belongings and take your car and leave you stranded.
According to Ryan, the gunman continued talking, and what he said gave him even greater cause for alarm.
I was in the black. I didn't come back right.
Ryan said that the carjacker was someone who had mental problems. He talked with him during the car ride about the fact that he hated women.
When I came back, my girl left me.
And he said that this man continued his irrational rantings. And Ryan says in his own mind, he knew this was not going to end well.
The conversation continued as Ryan drove south along the eastern seaboard, through Delaware, then into Maryland, before arriving 123 miles later in Crumpton at approximately 1:30 a.m.
Stop.
He said after driving to this point in Kent County, the person asked him to pull over, and he stopped.
Slowly. Get out of the car.
Ryan and Sarika exited the vehicle with the carjacker right behind them.
He put the gun down on the car and that he bound Ryan with duct tape.
But as the carjacker restrained him, Sarika suddenly took off running into a nearby field. Ryan claims their attacker quickly caught his wife and threw her to the ground.
Ryan hears Sarika screaming, "He's cutting me. He's stabbing me."
Hearing his wife's screams, Ryan tried to intervene, but with his hands and feet bound with duct tape, there was little he could do. Ryan also tells police the attacker slashed at him with a knife, opening a gash in his arm.
Ryan gets cut deeply, almost down to the bone on his forearm.
Ryan claims that in addition to cutting him, the attacker punched him repeatedly.
The masked gunman punches Ryan in the ribs and all about the face.
One final blow, a kick to the head, turned Ryan's world to black.
Ryan Holness said that he was hit in the head and knocked out for several hours.
Regaining consciousness early that morning, Ryan managed to free himself. He found his wife's lifeless body in a nearby field and staggered to the Rolfs farmhouse for help.
We've had murders, we've had some really terrible things happen, but we've never had something this bloody happen here.
I tried to help, but I mean, I was tied down, I couldn't get loose.
Ryan's statement dovetails with the notion that Sarika's death was the result of a violent carjacking. But before police finished their interview, they asked Ryan if he'd be willing to hand over his clothing to be processed for DNA and other physical evidence. He agrees.
He didn't try to hide anything. He tries to cooperate with the police.
Between Sarika's gruesome injuries and Ryan's description of their crazed assailant, police can't help but wonder if the motive for the crime goes beyond a mere carjacking.
It's just like this crazy guy snapped, and when he saw Sarika run away, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
"I hate women." That's what the masked gunman said. That's the motive as to why it happened.
While police aren't certain what kind of monster they're dealing with, the fact remains that Sarika's killer is still at large. And until he's brought to justice, local residents will be on pins and needles.
I'm scared to death, not knowing what the heck's going on. I was thinking maybe I should keep a couple knives in my bedroom, just in case.
Thankfully, the next day detectives catch their first break. Ryan's vehicle is located 80 miles away in Washington, D.C.
It was like, okay, they found the car, now they're gonna find some kind of evidence that, who did it.
Investigators seem optimistic as they race to D.C., but when they arrive, any hopes of finding the killer are quickly dashed.
The Honda Accord was found on A Street in D.C., near a bus station.
Whoever drove the car over there was able to make a pretty quick and convenient getaway from there, hopped on a bus and was gone.
Detectives scour the area in hopes of tracking down some surveillance footage of the bus stop, but their search comes up empty. It appears their only suspect has vanished without a trace. And as police continue hunting for Sarika's killer, the story would only grow more mysterious. In fact, police were about to uncover a dirty little secret about Sarika and Ryan. A secret so explosive it might have cost Sarika her life. Yeah. 26-year-old Jamaican-born Sarika Holness moved to the U.S. to be with her loving husband Ryan and live the American dream.
She was very happy. They were looking for a better life and a future together.
But on June 5th, 2009, their 6-year marriage came to a bizarre and gruesome ending.
Don't make a sound. Drive south.
Her dream had now turned into like a Freddy Krueger nightmare.
According to Ryan, a carjacker attacked the couple, beating him unconscious, then stabbing Sarika to death. 24 hours into the investigation, detectives catch a break. Ryan's stolen vehicle has been located 80 miles away in Washington, D.C.
The car was located in a part of D.C. that was near the bus station. They canvassed the area, they tried to get the videos, try to figure out what happened.
But their search comes up empty. Investigators then hand the vehicle over to their CSI team.
They go over the car with a fine-tooth comb. All those things are collected, tagged, and bagged to connect the dots to the perpetrator.
While detectives wait for the lab results, they reach out to the gas station in New Jersey where the carjacking allegedly took place.
Can you run it from last night, late?
Pouring through the footage, they are able to identify Ryan's car.
Right there. That's the car.
We could see that the car pulled up, but we couldn't see anything else to determine what happened. The surveillance was inconclusive.
For detectives, it's a dead end.
Are there any more cameras that show the pumps or any more angles that shows the pumps a little bit better?
No, these are the only ones covering the pumps.
With their investigation at an impasse, police decide to retrace their steps. They start by re-examining the killer's alleged motive.
If it's a robbery, money, cash, jewelry, those are the things you're gonna take.
But an inventory of personal items recovered at the crime scene suggests nothing appears missing.
Mrs. Holness's wallet was there, still zippered up. Inside there was money, her credit card, her cell phone was there.
And the couple's most valuable material possession, Ryan's car, had been abandoned at a bus station.
Why would a carjacker take a car to a bus station? He has the keys, he has the car.
Unable to answer that question, detectives begin to ponder a new and more chilling theory. Perhaps this wasn't a robbery after all, but rather a crime meant to look like one. Could Sarika have been the real target all along? That might explain why Ryan was left alive.
I couldn't imagine anybody hurting Sarika in any form.
It was a mystery. Why would anyone want to kill Susie?
While her family seems at a loss for a motive, they do reveal one startling secret about Ryan and Sarika's relationship. A secret that leaves detectives speechless.
Ryan and Sarika are second cousins.
She married him without the family approval. And once they found out, it just totally tore the family apart.
I didn't know what was going on between them. I saw them as kids hugging each other, knowing they were cousins.
But as much as their family disapproved of their holy matrimony, one thing soon becomes very clear to police. This marriage wasn't motivated purely by love.
It was a marriage of convenience. It was just to get married so that she could get her papers.
She married him for her to have a better life in the United States.
A fact Sarika didn't exactly flaunt, especially to U.S. immigration officials.
She's very secretive. She didn't want anybody to know that.
But it wasn't just Sarika who kept the true nature of her relationship with Ryan a secret. Ryan also kept the truth of the marriage under wraps from his numerous girlfriends.
We learned that Ryan had multiple girlfriends in Maryland, girlfriends in New York.
For detectives, any one of Ryan's girlfriends could be a potential suspect.
It could have been a woman. Mr. Holness was portrayed as somewhat of a womanizer. We know we all do crazy things for love and romance.
As investigators dig deeper into the case, they will unearth a trove of sordid secrets, including the shocking revelation that the twisted depths of this relationship run much deeper than anyone could ever imagine. Detectives in Maryland are more puzzled than ever by the stabbing death of 26-year-old Sarika Holness. Based on information provided by her husband Ryan,
Drive south.
Police initially believed Sarika had died during a botched carjacking. But within hours of discovering Sarika's body, the investigation shifts gears. Detectives have just learned strange new details about Ryan and Sarika's marriage.
They were from the same family tree. It was cousins.
It was a marriage of convenience. It was his cousin. He just wanted to help her to come to the U.S.
Investigators have also discovered that Sarika wasn't the only woman in Ryan's life.
We know he had other girlfriends, and it seems a bit strange to have so many different girlfriends.
In light of the startling turn of events, police decide to bring Ryan in for another round of questioning.
So Ron, tell me about Sarika, about your relationship with her.
Ryan admits their relationship is a little unorthodox, but he claims they both benefited from the arrangement.
It was just perhaps a different kind of a marriage and relationship than we might expect in the traditional sense of the word.
But what about the other women? According to Ryan, they were no secret to Sarika.
So she knew about your other women?
Of course, she knew about all of them.
It was an open relationship, and he felt comfortable in that kind of relationship. He believed that she was the kind of person that was accepting of that same relationship.
Still, police are curious if Sarika truly embraced the idea of an open marriage. But according to Ryan, he wasn't the only one in the relationship with a lover on the side.
She lived for a few years in Jamaica, even after they were married. And she had some kind of a male friend.
Police contact Sarika's family to corroborate Ryan's story. Sarika's family confirms she indeed had a boyfriend in Jamaica named Junior Powell.
Even though she was married to Ryan, Sarika was Junior's girl.
According to her family, Junior helped fill a gap in Sarika's life after she and Ryan married, but were forced to live in separate countries until immigration officials gave Sarika clearance to immigrate to the U.S. Sarika's family tells detectives that while Junior was head over heels for Sarika, he wasn't exactly thrilled with her marriage to Ryan.
I talked to him about that. It's not something that he was happy with.
Could her marriage to Ryan have finally pushed Junior to the brink? That theory seemed possible until police contact authorities in Jamaica. Turns out, Junior was in the Caribbean at the time of the murder. But if detectives can eliminate Sarika's lover as a suspect, then who committed this vicious crime? A search of Ryan's phone records reveals one possible clue.
Police were able to intercept text messages that he was getting from a woman the night of the murder.
The number is registered to a woman in Virginia Beach by the name of Deidre Williams. When police question Deidre, she admits that she and Ryan have been dating for the past 8 months.
Did you text Ryan the night that Sarika got murdered?
Yeah, we text a few times when he was leaving from New York.
But detectives are shocked when Deidre reveals the nature of their conversation.
Ryan texts message to say that he's gonna initiate a divorce from Sarika.
Her testimony was inconsistent with Ryan's story.
A review of the actual text messages shows that Deidre is telling the truth. Why did Ryan lie to police when they asked if he was happy with his marriage to Sarika? Detectives begin questioning Ryan's account of the attack.
Ryan Holness says he woke up after being knocked out and went straight to the home of a resident that was nearby.
Looking to verify his story, police call a canine unit to the scene.
Canine sniffed some of Ryan's clothing and he tracked exactly where Ryan went.
Locking onto a scent, the dogs don't lead handlers directly to the farmhouse where Ryan called 911.
Reckon he's picking up something we didn't see?
I don't know.
Rather, they take police in the opposite direction, to 2 locations Ryan never mentioned, a mobile home and a bridge over a nearby river.
Did he mention anything about going anywhere else?
Not the monology, he didn't.
I don't think he did.
Mr. Holness' scent was traced down to a river that he said he never went to. That can't happen, or the hound wouldn't have followed it.
I guess we'll have to ask Ron some more questions.
Contacting the owner of the mobile home, police soon make another startling discovery.
Around 3:30 in the morning, there was a knock on her front door and a knock on her rear door. No one answered the door, and there was duct tape found in her yard. This is the time when Mr. Ryan Holness should have been unconscious. There was a lot of unanswered questions, which now makes them think there's more to the story that's being told.
But police could never imagine just how twisted this sordid story was about to get, or the unspeakable evil that had forever severed 2 lives. The investigation into Sarika Holness's murder is getting more bizarre by the hour. Sarika was stabbed to death on a deserted road near the farming community of Crumpton, Maryland. But the investigation has revealed that Sarika and her husband Ryan were both having affairs, and that they were cousins.
You just can't make this up.
Don't make a sound.
Initially, police believed Sarika had died during a botched carjacking. But 24 hours into the case, the evidence is starting to point detectives in a new direction.
Ryan's story and the evidence, they're not matching up.
In fact, a canine search of the crime scene has placed Ryan at a bridge and then a mobile home shortly after the murder.
All this happened and he was supposed to be unconscious. It's not connecting.
And with the murder weapon nowhere to be found, detectives wonder if Ryan's trip to the bridge had a nefarious motive.
This is close to a river where you can discard the knife.
With circumstantial evidence mounting, police execute a search warrant of the townhouse in Maryland Ryan still shared with a friend.
Ryan was using his roommate's computer. So we talked with the roommate and we actually got the computer.
Found anything?
Yes, actually I have.
As a cybercrime unit examines the computer, they notice Ryan filed a fraudulent transaction.
He was masquerading in the name of Sarika Holness online. And he got a $500,000 life insurance policy. It would double to $1 million depending on how the death happened. And he put himself as the beneficiary of this life insurance policy.
That's a motive.
But a forensic analysis of the computer's hard drive also reveals something else.
Looks like he's been searching a lot of metro bus stations in DC.
Ryan Holness had actually Googled the location that this car ended up being. And he Googled this several weeks before.
Good work, appreciate it. Save that for us.
For detectives, this evidence suggests one thing and one thing only.
Premeditation. Someone's had a plan and they were putting all the pieces in place before they initiated.
But investigators have a problem. Ryan couldn't have pulled this off by himself.
We know he had an accomplice, taking the car away to Washington, D.C.
Even without a positive ID on this alleged mystery accomplice, police decide to push forward with charges.
All right, stand up.
For what?
You're under arrest.
For what?
For murder.
I didn't do anything.
The news leaves more than a few people stunned.
Man, this is stupid.
To tell you the truth, my action was that he was innocent. I would have bet my life that he was innocent.
I believe in Ryan's innocence because I know he didn't do it. Ryan is not the type of person.
On March 14, 2011, Ryan Holness is led into a Baltimore courtroom to stand trial for the death of his wife, Sarika.
What I was concerned about was the family members and making sure that justice was done for them.
Prosecutors opened by laying out the government's case, contending that on the night of June 4, 2009, Ryan Holness drove Sarika to a field in Crumpton, Maryland, where he stabbed her 58 times. After the murder, Ryan scattered his and Sarika's belongings and then inflicted a knife wound to create the illusion of a violent carjacking. While Ryan's mystery accomplice drove his car to D.C., Ryan disposed of the murder weapon.
We believe very strongly that Ryan Holness went to the bridge and threw that knife in the river.
According to prosecutors, Ryan then went to the mobile home. But when nobody answered, he headed to the Rolfe residence where they called 911.
It sounds strange. It sounds unbelievable. But this is how he killed his wife.
Prosecutors explained to jurors the motive behind this unthinkable crime. Sarika was worth more to Ryan dead than alive.
It really just boiled down to greed. It was greed to get the $1 million in insurance money.
After laying out the motive, prosecutors hammer away at the discrepancy between Ryan's version of events and the evidence revealed during the subsequent canine search.
The canine dog followed Ryan Holness' scent to the bridge. It was very clear that his story was just not adding up.
Ryan's attorneys agree that their client's story isn't entirely consistent. but they assert it has nothing to do with dishonesty or murder.
If I'd been carjacked, I'm stabbed, and I'm knocked unconscious, I'd have been very confused on the exact sequence of events and where I'd actually traveled.
The defense claims that's why Ryan never told police about his trip to the bridge or to the mobile home. On the heels of a violent attack that left him dazed and confused, Ryan simply forgot. But as prosecutors point out, if Ryan had truly survived such a brutal assault, medical records would support that claim.
Ryan Holness said that he was knocked out for several hours. Well, the doctor said there was no physical evidence that he sustained any injury to be knocked out for that amount of time.
Prosecutors then lay out the laundry list of evidence they believe confirms Ryan had been plotting to murder Sarika. His affairs, the damning phone and computer records, and the $1 million insurance policy Ryan took out on Sarika's life. But Ryan's defense team counters that their client's actions weren't that unusual in light of other policies Ryan and Sarika had recently obtained.
She was on other policies of Ryan's as well that even predated this insurance policy.
The defense's argument makes sense, but they have a much harder time refuting the forensic evidence recovered from both Sarika's body and Ryan's clothing.
She had chipped fingernails and chipped toenail polish, and they found some of those chipped particles on Ryan's clothing.
The evidence suggests a struggle took place between Ryan and Sarika around the time of her death. It seems like a crushing blow to Ryan's defense, but his attorneys quickly turned the tables.
There was blood inside the vehicle, which did not match Ryan's blood, nor did it match Sarika's blood.
The defense argues this is proof that Ryan has been telling the truth all along, that they were the victims of a violent carjacking, and that Sarika's killer is still at large.
We provided every reasonable explanation to that jury that he was an innocent person and that the real killer was still out there.
But prosecutors still have one more witness to call. And what he was about to say would not only rock the courtroom, but could very well make or break the case. Charged with the death of his wife and second cousin, Sarika, the trial of 30-year-old Ryan Holness is rapidly drawing to a close. Ryan's attorneys have argued a DNA sample recovered inside the Holness' vehicle is proof that an unidentified carjacker murdered Sarika. But prosecutors argue otherwise and call a surprise witness to the stand: Ryan's cellmate in the Kent County Jail, Stephen McGrath.
His cellmate was able to get information from Ryan Holness that was supportive of the investigation.
According to McGrath, Ryan asked for his help drafting a letter in the voice of the carjacker, a letter designed as a ruse to divert suspicion away from himself.
He was writing it to the Washington Post. Dear Washington Post, I am the real killer. I killed Sarika Holness. He wanted to give the confession letter to his cellmate, who was getting out of jail soon. And his cellmate was supposed to rewrite the confession letter, and then they were going to send the confession letter to the Washington Post.
McGrath testifies that Ryan needed his help to ensure the letter could never be traced directly back to him. But instead of sending the letter to the newspaper, McGrath turned it over to the police. The details were telling.
The information that was in the letter could only have been provided by the perpetrator.
A copy of the letter is shown to jurors, and its authenticity verified.
They brought in a handwriting expert, and it was confirmed that it was Ryan Holness' handwriting.
With the confession letter in mind, the jury breaks for deliberation. Sarika's family anxiously awaits their decision.
I say to myself, Ryan, if you are the one who really killed Susie, whatever you get, deserve it.
On March 28, 2011, the jury returns with a verdict: guilty.
We're all broken. Sometimes I think of it as if I'm watching a soap opera or a movie. That's how I look at it. I don't think it's for real.
But Sarika's family is relieved.
They had been living with this nightmare for months and months. So to have the jury come back and determine that he's guilty on all counts was important to them.
2 months later, the judge issues Ryan's punishment, life in prison. The sentence was the final chapter in this tragic love story tainted by scandal and greed. Sarika was so enchanted with the idea of being married and living a better life in America that she couldn't see the evil lurking in the heart of the man who promised to make those dreams come true.
He's a killer. I mean, he's just a killer. He devised an elaborate scheme to kill his wife to obtain $1 million in insurance money. And what would motivate someone to do that is just beyond me.
Chapter 1. The Stillness on Willow Creek. It was July 3rd, 2016, and the morning light, usually vibrant and full of the electric hum of an approaching 4th of July, fell thin. At precisely 9:30 a.m., the world was awakening to a symphony of chirping birds and distant lawnmowers. A gentle symphony, utterly at odds with the silent tableau Leo had stumbled upon. He'd slipped out of his house on Meadowbrook Lane, an unassuming suburban street lined with sturdy oak trees and patchwork lawns, intent on recapturing his stray kickball. It had sailed over Mr. Henderson's fence the previous evening, landing somewhere near the overgrown stretch of Willow Creek Park, a sliver of forgotten wilderness that skirted the back of Liberty Bay Academy. Most kids avoided that particular patch. Local lore claimed it was a haunt for forgotten dreams and the occasional wandering soul. But Leo, ever the intrepid explorer, wasn't deterred by ghost stories when his favorite ball was involved. His worn sneakers crunched on gravel, stirring up the metallic scent of dust and damp earth. The sun, still low, cast long, distorted shadows of the park's skeletal trees, making familiar shapes seem menacing. It was amidst this quiet, almost reverent stillness that he saw it, or, rather, him. The form was too still, too rigid, unlike the slumber of a homeless man he'd occasionally spotted in the neighborhood. This was different, an unnatural, unsettling stillness. His 8-year-old brain, still grappling with the nuances of life and death, immediately registered it as wrong. A fear, cold and sharp as a splinter, pierced through his childish curiosity. It wasn't the fear of a monster under the bed. It was the primitive terror of encountering something irrevocably broken in a world that was supposed to be whole. Without another thought, his kickball forgotten, he ran like the wind itself was at his heels, the fear lending an unnatural speed to his small legs, all the way back to the familiar, comforting sanctuary of his own home. He burst through the screen door, gasping for air, the metallic taps of panic thick in his throat. "Dad," he cried, his voice a frantic squeak, heart hammering against his ribs. There's someone in the park. He's not moving." His father, Arthur Jenkins, a man whose easygoing demeanor was as consistent as the Texas humidity, was perched at the kitchen table, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee and half-heartedly attempting to solve a crossword puzzle. The urgency in Leo's voice, the genuine terror etched on his small, flushed face, instantly yanked Arthur from his Sunday morning stupor. He placed the newspaper down, his brow furrowing with concern. "Whoa, son, slow down. What are you talking about? Who's not moving?" He hadn't really tried. Of course, the fear had been too great, but in his panic, the fabrication felt real. Arthur, sensing the gravity in his son's distress, quickly followed Leo outside and towards the direction he pointed, the kickball now entirely out of his mind. He expected to find a homeless man, perhaps drunk and passed out, a common enough sight in various parts of the city. He walked cautiously, Leo clutching the back of his shorts, pointing with a trembling finger towards the willow tree. As they approached, Arthur's easy smile faded, replaced by a grim line. The sight that greeted him was far more unsettling than a drunkard sleeping off a binge. The figure was indeed motionless, strangely contorted. There was a dark, glistening stain on the ground beneath the head, a stark contrast against the dry, pale grass. "Hey, Arthur called out, his voice deeper than he intended, a practiced non-confrontational tone from years of dealing with neighborhood minor disputes. Wake up. Everything all right over there? The distinct, coppery scent of blood, faint but undeniable, now mingled with the park's natural odors, pricking at Arthur's senses. His stomach clenched. This wasn't a sleeper. This was something far, far worse. Stay here, Leo, he commanded, his voice suddenly sharp, betraying the ice that had begun to creep into his veins. He pulled out his phone, his fingers fumbling slightly as he dialed 911. I think we need an ambulance, and the police. Within minutes, the serene morning was shattered. The wail of sirens, faint at first, then growing inexorably louder, tore through the quiet district. A Houston Fire Department ambulance, its red and white gleaming, was the first to arrive, followed closely by a patrol car from the Emerald City Police Department. The quiet park transformed into a Stage 4 emergency personnel. 2 paramedics, grim-faced and efficient, approached the figure with their medical kits. As they carefully rolled the body onto its back to begin their assessment, a collective gasp seemed to ripple through the small group of onlookers, Arthur, and a few neighbors who had drifted over, drawn by the sirens. It wasn't a man. It was a woman, perhaps in her early 30s, dressed in clothes that, despite the grim circumstances, suggested a vibrant, modern lifestyle. Dark jeans, a patterned silk top that now clung grotesquely to a still form. But it was the head wound, now fully exposed to the harsh glare of the mid-morning sun, that stole the air from everyone's lungs. The crimson splatter, dried and stark against her dark hair in the pale grass, told a gruesome, unambiguous story. There would be no resuscitation here. A young uniformed officer, his face pale beneath his cap, approached Arthur. Sir, your son found this. Arthur merely nodded, unable to articulate the shock that gripped him. He pulled Leo closer, shielding his son's eyes from the horror now fully revealed. The 4th of July weekend, a time for joyous celebrations, for the explosion of fireworks against the velvet sky, for backyard barbecues and the comforting clatter of family gatherings, was now irrevocably tainted in the Southgate district. While the rest of Emerald City prepared for festive picnics, the Emerald City Police Department had a brutal, utterly inexplicable body on their hands. Detective Sergeant Marcus Thorne, a man whose career spanned the grim landscape of murder for nearly 22 years within the Emerald City Police Department's Homicide Division, felt the familiar tremor of his cell phone against the cool ceramic of his coffee mug. It was Sunday, and he'd been savoring the first quiet sips of his morning brew, the rich aroma of Guatemalan roast filling his kitchen. The sound, even before he answered, held an inherent weight. It always did. He glanced at the caller ID. Homicide desk. He knew. Thorne, he answered, his voice a gravelly rumble, a weary calmness that came from 2 decades of facing humanity's darkest impulses. Sergeant, we've got a body. The desk officer's voice was crisp, efficient, betraying nothing of the horrific details Marcus knew would follow. Southgate District, near Liberty Bay Academy, Willow Creek Park, appears to be an adult female, deceased. Patrols got a perimeter up. EMT is confirmed. Now a death investigation. Marcus sighed, the warmth of his coffee suddenly feeling like a distant memory. The 4th of July weekend, just when he'd hoped for a couple of days of relative peace. I'm on my way. He dressed quickly, pulling on his customary dark suit, the fabric a comforting, familiar weight on his shoulders. Each button, each knot of his tie, a deliberate act of preparation, not just for the physical rigors of the scene, but for the mental ones. He was a master of closing cases, a relentless force in the pursuit of justice, but he was far from alone in this grim endeavor. It took a rare kind of fortitude to stare into the abyss of humanity's depravity, to painstakingly piece together shattered lives, to outwit a ruthless killer and find justice for the silent dead. That was the solemn, often thankless, creed of an Emerald City detective. Driving through the quiet Sunday streets, the city gradually stirring, Marcus allowed his mind to process. Female victim, South, a public place, yet isolated enough for a body dump. Already, scenarios began to flicker behind his eyes. Domestic dispute, robbery gone wrong, sexual assault, each possibility, a thread in a tapestry of sorrow he was about to weave. He arrived at Willow Creek Park to find a vibrant tapestry of crime scene tape, fluorescent yellow, crisscrossing the trees and cordoning off a significant area. Uniformed officers were everywhere, their grave faces reflecting the grim reality. Patrol cars, their blue-on-red lights silently swirling, cast an eerie, rhythmic pulse across the due-east grass. A younger detective, slight of build with sharp, intelligent eyes, was already at the scene, conferring with a patrol sergeant. Detective Elijah Vance, fresh out of the Homicide Division's rigorous 3-month orientation, stood with a notepad clutched in his hand, his expression a mixture of intense focus and nascent unease. Marcus recognized that look. It was the face of a man about to carry the weight of his first lead investigation. "Morning, Detective," Marcus said, approaching Vance with a nod. "Anything on the victim?" Eli Vance turned, his face brightening, relief clearly visible as Marcus approached. Eli had a natural intensity, a drive to prove himself that Marcus respected. Eli's path to homicide had been quick, fueled by raw talent and an insatiable desire to learn. He was a sponge, soaking up every nuance, every whispered piece of advice. He just needed a steady hand. "Sergeant Thorne," Eli responded, his voice still holding a hint of eagerness, despite the grim circumstances. "I got here about an hour ago. Victim is an adult female, Caucasian, early 30s, by initial estimate. No ID found on a person so far. Apparent multiple gunshot wounds to the head. It's pretty rough, Sergeant." Marcus leaned in, surveying the scene with an expert's gaze. The paramedics and patrol officers had done their job. The body was secured, the area undisturbed, save for the initial assessment. The forensic team was just beginning their meticulous work, moving like shadows under the rising sun. "Multiple gunshot wounds, you say?" Marcus queried, his eyes fixed on the victim's head. From this distance, through the lens of experience, he could discern the severe trauma, the dark, matted hair, but true clarity would only come in the controlled environment of the morgue. Difficult to tell with all the visual disruption. Eli nodded, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "That's what I thought. It's hard to differentiate between the entry points and general tissue damage, but there's extensive trauma. The scene itself, though, Sergeant, come closer." Marcus followed Eli to the edge of the police tape. Eli gestured with a gloved hand towards a patch of flattened grass several feet away from where the body lay. "We noticed something. See that? Over here." Marcus's eyes, trained to dissect a crime scene like a surgeon dissects an anatomy, followed the line of Eli's pointing finger. He saw it. A faint but unmistakable trail, a slight depression in the grass, marred by a sporadic spatter of reddish-brown droplets. "Transfer blood," he murmured, the term rolling off his tongue with a practiced ease. "Exactly," Eli confirmed, a spark of pride in his voice that Marcus inwardly acknowledged. Eli was learning to see beyond the obvious. "And judging by the pattern and where the primary body fluid pooled, it looks like she wasn't shot here. She was likely dumped." "Dragged out," Marcus corrected, his gaze sweeping over the landscape, calculating distances, angles. "The blood evidence suggests a vehicle pulled up, stopped, and then a body was offloaded, and then dragged that short distance to this spot." His eyes narrowed, contemplating the sheer dehumanization of the act, as if she were just a piece of refuse. A wave of anger, cold and steady, washed over Marcus. The disregard for human life, the casual contempt implied by such a deposition, always struck him deeply. It was the ultimate insult to a person's dignity. "Let's get the me up here to move her," Marcus directed, turning to a forensic tech. "I want photos from every angle, every inch of that transfer blood documented, and sweep this area meticulously. Every blade of grass, every The scene crackled with a renewed energy. The medical examiner's team, clad in full personal protective gear, moved in to prepare the body for transport. As they gently maneuvered the victim onto a stretcher, their actions careful and respectful despite the grisly reality, Marcus and Eli leaned in, trying to glean more information. Now, with a slightly clearer view, the true extent of the head trauma was more apparent. It was still a mangled mess, matted with blood and debris, but the suggestion of multiple wounds persisted. No visible projectiles yet, but we'll wait for the morgue. Under proper lights, once she's cleaned up, that's where the story begins to unfold. Then, Marcus noticed something glinting softly at the victim's wrist, and a faint shine around her neck. "Hold on," he instructed, gesturing for them to pause for a moment. He pointed her jewelry. A delicate silver chain, still clasped around her neck, and a simple watch on her wrist, untarnished, remained in place. This detail registered instantly. If this was a robbery, Marcus mused aloud, a frown creasing his brow. Why leave the valuables? This complicates the narrative. Eli scribbled in his notebook, his mind working through the implications. Could be a robbery interrupted, or not a robbery at all. Maybe personal. Perhaps, Marcus conceded, a sexual assault, where the attacker wasn't interested in the jewelry, or more likely, something domestic. A personal attack. Money wasn't the motive here. Not primarily, anyway. The immediate facts were sparse, shrouded in grim ambiguity. An unknown woman, discarded like trash. Her jewelry intact. The means of her death brutally apparent, but the circumstances baffling. All right, Eli. Priority 1. And how did she come to be here? Anything around here that could give us a lead? His gaze drifted across the park to the imposing brick facade of Liberty Bay Academy, its dark windows staring back like vacant eyes. High school cameras. Eli nodded, his gaze following Marcus's. That's my hope. It's directly across the street. We've already got uniformed officers checking for a security office, hoping for a wide enough angle to catch a vehicle at this exact spot. The time of dumping, that's our key. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. Is the surveillance active during non-school hours? Where are the lenses pointed? Get us that footage, immediately. Even if it's nothing, it's still something. Rule it out, or pray it gives us a ghost of a clue. The wheels of the investigation had officially begun to grind. Detective Vance, surprisingly nimble for a rookie in homicide, was quickly able to liaise with the Liberty Bay Academy administration. A skeletal crew of summer staff were present, preparing for upcoming athletic camps. They were stunned by the grim discovery across the street, but cooperative. Within an hour, they'd managed to burn a copy of the previous night's surveillance footage from the exterior cameras pointed towards Willow Creek Park. Back at the precinct, the digital hum of the server room offered little comfort, as Marcus and Eli sat hunched over a monitor, the low glow illuminating their faces. They fast-forwarded through hours of mundane emptiness, shadows stretching, the occasional passing car, an early morning jogger, until just past 2 a.m. on July 3rd, the screen flickered, capturing their full attention. There, Eli whispered, pointing a steady finger. 2 distinct headlights cut through the digital grain, appearing from the right side of the frame. The vehicle, indistinct in the grainy, monochrome footage, slowed down and then stopped. Crucially, it paused precisely at the spot where Amara Diallo's body had been found. Marcus leaned closer, his eyes narrowed, searching for any identifiable feature. Can't make out the make or model, but it's a smaller vehicle. The general silhouette is somewhat rounded, like a compact. A brief, indistinct interaction seemed to take place, obscured by the angle and the darkness. This segment was consistent with their theory of a body being brought to the scene. The quality of the footage made it impossible to discern specific features, but the sheer force and unnatural weight suggested by the motion was unmistakable. That's it, Marcus stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, yet heavy with certainty. The drag marks, the transfer blood, it all lines up. The form was tugged a short distance, a silent, macabre dance of disposal, disappearing towards the slight dip in the terrain that led towards the creek. The murderer was discarding their burden. A moment later, the figure reappeared, moving with a quicker, more purposeful stride, scrambling back into the driver's seat. The vehicle's headlights flared, and then, with an almost defiant surge, it sped away, vanishing from the frame as quickly as it had appeared. The screen reverted to empty stillness, yet the image of the vehicle, the anonymous figure, and the profound act of desecration burned in their minds. It's all making sense now, Eli said, his voice quiet, almost awed by the brutal clarity the footage offered. The crime scene, it was talking to us, and now we know exactly what it was saying. The first crucial piece of the puzzle was in place. They knew how Amara Diallo's body arrived at Willow Creek Park. The much harder questions, who she was, who put her there, and why, still hung heavy in the air, a silent challenge in a lead-up to the most anticipated holiday of the summer. The next day, July 4th, dawned with the festive air across Emerald City. The scent of charcoal smoke began to drift from backyards. The cheerful thud of firecrackers, far from the booming concussions of the murder weapon, echoed in the distance. The city vibrated with anticipation for parades, cookouts, and the grand evening firework displays. But for Marcus Thorne and Elijah Vance, there would be no celebration, no barbecue, no patriotic cheer. Their 4th of July was marked by the solemn, sterile halls of the Emerald City Medical Examiner's office. Morning, Doc. Marcus, greeted Dr. Arias Thorne, the chief medical examiner, a woman with kind eyes but hands accustomed to grim realities. Dr. Thorne, a seasoned veteran of countless autopsies, nodded gravely. Sergeant, detective, got a fresh one for you. Our Jane Doe. From the sterile clang of instruments, the clinical scent of antiseptic, and something deeper, more visceral, filled the room. The body, now cleansed and meticulously examined, lay beneath the powerful overhead lights. The previous visual mess had been meticulously cleaned away, revealing the horrifying truth. The wounds tell a story, just like a crime scene tells a story, Dr. Thorne began, her voice calm and professional as she pointed to the back of Amara's head. Single gunshot wound, rear of the skull. This wasn't an execution-style shooting. However, see this. She indicated a peculiar discoloration around the entry wound, but very close range, say, within a few inches to a foot or two. Marcus leaned in, the grim detail affirming his initial suspicion. The wound itself, once the blood was washed away, revealed its ugly precision, so the shooter was practically on top of her. Yes, Dr. Thorne confirmed, and noticed the stippling here almost like burned particles. If the gun was closer, a contact wound, it would literally brand the skin, a muzzle imprint that cannot be wiped away. This is slightly less extreme, but still indicative of proximity. Eli scribbled furiously, absorbing every detail. So, a confrontation then, not an ambush from a distance. Precisely. As for projectiles, we recovered one slug from the brain tissue, heavily deformed but relatively intact. The trajectory was upwards and forwards, suggesting the victim was likely slumped, or possibly struggling, when the shot was fired, and the shooter was standing over her, or positioned slightly higher. It struck critical brain structures, causing instant incapacitation and rapid death. Minimal signs of struggle around the neck or hands, suggesting a rapid incapacitation after the first wound, or she was subdued prior. Any ballistics evidence, like shell casings? Marcus asked, though he knew the answer already. Killers rarely leave such obvious clues at a dump site. And a few abrasions that matched the drag marks you found. Dr. Thorne paused, looking at the two detectives. Any ideas on who she is yet? Marcus shook his head. Not yet, Doc. Still, Jane Doe. No wallet, no purse, no identification. Her jewelry was intact, so robbery isn't the primary motive anymore. Well, we ran the prints from the scene last night, Dr. Thorne said, offering a small piece of good news. And with her being relatively recent, even for a non-criminal record, we have a good chance. In the great state of Texas, they're pretty meticulous about fingerprinting during driver's license applications, so if she's got a valid license, she'll be in the system. That's our hope, Marcus admitted. Fingerprints were often the quickest key to identity. Without a name, they had no world to investigate, no connections to trace, no life story to unravel. Leaving the chill of the morgue, Marcus clapped Eli on the shoulder. The breakthrough came with a sudden, electrifying jolt on July 5th. Marcus and Eli were back at the precinct, reviewing the still unidentified car footage for the 10th time, when the phone on Eli's desk rang. It was Forensic Services. Detective Vance, we've got a hit on those prints from the Jane Doe. The lab technician's voice was calm, almost understated, but the words sent a surge of adrenaline through Eli. You're kidding me, Eli breathed, his hand already reaching for his notebook. Give it to me. The data unfurled quickly. A full name, date of birth, and an address. Our victim is 31-year-old female, Amara Diallo, residence in the West Oakwood area. Clean record, no previous arrest. Eli immediately relayed the information to Marcus, who had already risen from his chair, a rare flicker of urgency in his usually impassive eyes. Amara Diallo, Marcus repeated, the name tasting foreign, yet suddenly solid. Who decided that Amara Diallo needs to go away? Because someone certainly did. The next crucial step, the one Marcus still dreaded despite years of experience, was also the most profoundly human, the death notification. It was a task that offered no shortcuts, no easy answers, just raw, unvarnished grief. As a new lead detective, This solemn duty fell squarely on Eli Vance's shoulders. Marcus saw the apprehension in Eli's eyes. "Listen," Eli Marcus said, placing a hand on his younger partner's arm. "There's nothing pretty about this. Nothing easy. You go in with a suit, your badge, and a truth no family ever wants to hear. You be gentle, you be respectful, and you give them space. But you also start to build your case, even amidst the sorrow." Eli swallowed hard. "I understand, Sergeant." He knew, intellectually, what this entailed. Emotionally, he was about to learn a profound lesson. The late afternoon sun cast long, solemn shadows as Eli pulled his unmarked sedan into the tree-lined street of the West Oakwood neighborhood. Amara Diallo's address, a modest but well-maintained single-family home, stood before him, the very picture of quiet domesticity. He smoothed down his suit jacket, adjusted his tie, and took a deep breath. Standing on the porch, he rang the doorbell. The sound seemed amplified in the quiet street, a jarring intrusion. After a moment, the door opened a crack, revealing the worried eyes of a woman in her late 50s, her hair braided, a gentle warmth in her face that was rapidly fading into apprehension. "Mrs. D," Eli asked, his voice softer than usual, extending his badge. "Detective Vance, Emerald City Police Department. May I speak with you?" Before he could utter a single word, they knew why he was there. Someone who was supposed to be home wasn't. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening, filled with an unbearable anguish. Eli had seen it every time, that flicker of raw, unadulterated knowing. "Amara," she whispered, the single word a fragile question, heavy with an answer she already feared. Eli could only offer a small, sympathetic nod. "Ma'am, may I come in? I have some difficult news about your daughter." Aminata stepped back, her knees threatening to buckle, her world crumbling around her. She led him into a living room filled with vibrant African textiles and photographs, a shrine to family life. He saw a younger Amara in one frame, radiant and smiling. It twisted the knife deeper. She sank onto a sofa, her body trembling. Her brother, a man named Ahuda Diallo, emerged from a back room, his face etched with concern. Eli, with profound regret, delivered the devastating news. Aminata's grief was immediate, visceral, and heart-wrenching. Tears streamed down her face, silent rivers of sorrow, while her son and Amara's brother, stood rigid, his face pale with shock. "No, no, not my Kumba, Amara," Aminata sobbed, correcting herself, using a nickname only the family understood. She was such a good child, a good kid growing up, so many friends. Her smile had lit up every room. Doda, still struggling to process the information, found his voice. Eli listened, giving them time, but gently shifted the conversation to gathering information. He learned that Amara Diallo's parents were immigrants from Sierra Leone, a story of resilience and aspiration. But Amara, born and raised in the United States, was the embodiment of their American dream. She was a mover, a shaker, destined for success. She had built a burgeoning career as a model, her striking features and confident poise gracing local campaigns. But she wasn't content to simply rest on her laurels. She possessed a formidable intellect and a passionate voice, which she channeled into an internet radio show called The Catalyst. The image that emerged was starkly different from many homicide victims Eli had encountered. Individuals, often entangled in dangerous lifestyles, caught in the undertow of poverty or criminality. Amara Diallo was anything but. She was a woman of promise, radiating positivity, driven by purpose. "Mrs. Diallo, Mr. Diallo," Eli began gently, "when was the last time you heard from Amara?" "Babe," and she was talking about going to a party later that evening. Said she'd be back soon. Then she left. Saturday, July 2nd. The timeline now had a crucial anchor. The party. Was she having problems with anyone? Eli asked, delicately treading the fine line between empathy and investigation. Anyone in her life who might wish her harm. She told him, "I don't owe you nothing. Leave me alone." Eli jotted down the name, Damian Cross. Money was a powerful motive, capable of driving people to desperate acts. It often lurked at the heart of violent crime. Was this what happened with Mr. Cross? Eli knew he'd have to find out. Before Eli left, a final, critical piece of information surfaced. "The car," Detective Duda asked, his eyes wide. "You found her car yet? Her little blue Zenith, She loved that car. Eli's mind reeled. A vehicle. He hadn't been aware she owned one, let alone a missing one. The surveillance footage, the indistinct, rounded shape of the car. A blue, compact Zenith. Eli pressed, a jolt of recognition hitting him. Can you describe it further? What a year? Small. You know, a bubble-shaped design. Here they had a woman shot to death, her car missing, perhaps stolen by her killer, driven away from the scene of the crime or, more likely, from wherever the shooting actually occurred. The last vestige of Amara Diallo's presence. The search for justice for Amara Diallo, the vibrant radio host and model, had just taken a very personal turn. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Flames. Eli immediately conveyed the information to Marcus. Sergeant, the victim has a missing vehicle, Eli explained, holding up his notebook. Marcus's eyes, usually steady, gleamed with an almost predatory focus. Eli moved with a new sense of purpose, drafting the bulletin. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to the existing lead, Damian Krause. And then, we bring him in for an interview. We need to hear his side of the story. Damian Krause was picked up quickly by patrol officers and brought down to the station. He arrived looking disheveled, a nervous energy thrumming off him. Marcus and Eli brought him into one of the smaller interview rooms, the sterile environment doing little to calm the man's evident agitation. Mr. Krause, Marcus began, his voice calm, steady, deliberately disarming. My name is Sergeant Thorne. This is Detective Vance. We're here to talk about Amara Diallo. His eyes flickered, betraying a complex mix of shock, fear, and perhaps a hidden resentment. Marcus studied him, noting the subtle cues. Damian's reaction seemed genuine in its surprise, but the underlying tension was palpable. Eli took notes, observing Marcus's masterful control of the tempo. We understand you and Miss Diallo had a complicated past, Marcus continued, allowing the statement to hang in the air. Her family indicated a dispute, particularly over money, that led to a bitter breakup. Give me the money. I don't owe you nothing. Those were the words we heard. Damian visibly flinched at the direct quote. My sister's misunderstanding. Boy, he stammered, shaking his head. Yeah, we had arguments, like any couple, but the money that was settled years ago. Amara, she had her own money, her own job. She was always independent. She took care of herself. I never took anything from her. Marcus listened, letting him speak, looking for inconsistencies, foretells. Well, anyone can say that, Mr. Krause. We need more than just your word. Where were you, Mr. Krause, on the night this murder occurred? That would be Saturday, July 2nd, leading into the early hours of Sunday, July 3rd. Damian immediately provided an alibi. I was out of town, at a house party in C. My cousin was celebrating his engagement. There must have been 20, 30 people there all night. I stayed until almost dawn. Crashed there. Eli efficiently followed up, getting names and contact numbers. Can anyone verify that, Mr. Krause? Yeah, absolutely. Call them all. They'll tell you. Damian's tone was defensive, but his eyes held a glimmer of truth. Eli spent the next hour making phone calls, cross-referencing names, and obtaining independent confirmations, Marcus observed, satisfied as the pieces fell into place. Person after person corroborated Damian's story. He had been at the party, highly visible, for the entire time frame in question. Thank you for your time, Mr. Krause, Marcus said, concluding the interview. We appreciate your cooperation. We'll be in touch if anything else comes up. Damian Krause, visibly relieved but still shaken by Amara's death, was allowed to leave. As he walked out, Marcus turned to Eli. Krause is out. His alibi is solid. This just reinforced my earlier thought. Homicide investigation is a series of challenges, and in the beginning, it's often more bad news than good, but you cannot lose your resolve. Eli, you have to play the game. People often say, they'll just have to wait for a break. No, we don't wait for anything. We make our own breaks. We make our own luck. Just as Marcus finished his sentence, the very break they needed, unforeseen and dramatic, exploded onto their desks. The bolo for the blue compact Zenith, circulating across the Emerald City's patrol network, paid off faster than expected. A call came in from the patrol desk. Sergeant Thorne, Detective Vance, we've got a possible hit on that Zenith. The officer's voice was urgent. Report of a vehicle fire across from a dormitory building at Greater Trinity University. Looks like it's been deliberately torched. Fire department's on scene. They pulled the vang. It matches your boy. Marcus and Eli exchanged a quick, grim glance. Texas Southern University. That's not too far from the Southgate district. Marcus mused. Well, what do you know? I'll break. They raced to the scene. The smoke had mostly dissipated, but the acrid smell of burnt plastic and charred upholstery hung heavy in the humid air. Across from a student dorm, now buzzing with curious students and emergency personnel, stood a hollowed-out, blackened hulk. The once vibrant blue 2004 compact Zenith was reduced to a skeleton of scorched metal and melted components. Well, who's responsible for this mess? Marcus muttered, surveying the wreckage. Arson investigators, their faces grimy but expressions grimly professional, were already at work. They confirmed the vang, linking the inferno directly to their homicide report in the tragic death of Amara. This is her car, no doubt, Eli said, his voice flat. He walked around the burnt-out shell, noting the patterns of the charring. A spectacularly ill-conceived panic attempt. At that, Marcus countered, kicking lightly at a detached piece of plastic. And then douse it with a gallon of gasoline. It'll do some serious damage. Yes, but it creates an The fire won't sustain for long enough to completely incinerate every last piece of evidence. You're left with a severely damaged vehicle, but not a thoroughly scrubbed slate. Whoever did this, they're not exactly the brightest bulb in the fixture, or they didn't have much of a plan beyond blind panic. The arson investigators carefully, painstakingly, extracted pieces of the interior, sealing them in evidence bags. The vehicle would be transported to the forensic examination building, where a team of specialists would meticulously scour it for clues, however minute. Blood on the inside of the driver's door, one of the arson investigators reported, holding up a small, charred piece of fabric carefully extracted. Looks like human blood, and it's still somewhat viable despite the charring. Marcus nodded. We've requested swabs for DNA. Let's hope for a match, or at least a profile to run. Eli was already talking to the Greater Trinity University security staff, requesting immediate access to their extensive surveillance network. Surely a university campus has high-definition cameras covering this entire area, especially student housing, Eli stated with hopeful certainty. We need footage of this car, from the moment it arrived to the moment it burned. Marcus watched the scene unfold, a sense of grim satisfaction settling in. The killer thought they were clever, but their panic had created more clues, not less. Later that evening, in a darkened office at the precinct, Marcus and Eli reviewed the Greater Trinity University surveillance footage. The campus security system, far more sophisticated than the high school's, provided clear, almost crisp images despite the night. The video displayed a timestamp, 2:07 a.m., July 4th. A blue compact Zenith, unmistakable now in its form, drove into the frame. It pulled into a dimly lit parking spot across from the dormitory, a secluded area ideal for illicit activities. A figure emerged from the driver's side, their movements quick and furtive. They were tall, powerfully built, clad in dark clothing. They spent several minutes rummaging around the car, occasionally looking over their shoulder, a clear sign of paranoia. The detectives could almost feel the tension emanating from the screen. Then, the moment of dramatic impact. A sudden, violent flash illuminated the darkness, followed by an immediate eruption of flames, engulfing the small car. They set it ablaze, Eli whispered, the implication hanging heavy. The burning was almost instantaneous, a testament to the amount of accelerant used. Marcus leaned back, his mind already spinning through possibilities. But that's not the only piece of the puzzle here. Eli, look at this. He rewound the footage. Just before the Zenith appeared, another vehicle, a dark-colored sedan, less distinctive than the Zenith, had briefly paused at the edge of the parking lot, its headlights flashing before it pulled away and parked further down the street, almost out of sight. A brief, whispered exchange, a frantic gesture from the Zenith driver. Then, both figures moved away, the driver of the Arcadian Sentinel leading the Zenith driver away from the campus on foot. They both disappeared into the pre-dawn gloom. He didn't come alone, Marcus observed, pointing at the screen. Someone dropped him off, or, more likely, he called someone after he dumped the car, and they came to pick him up. Either way, someone helped this killer cover their tracks. A single figure, once again dark and indistinct, emerged from the passenger side, spent a few moments surveying the damage, and then got back into the waiting Arcadian Sentinel, which then drove away. So the killer came back. Eli deduced, a chill creeping into his voice, to see if the job was done, and he had an accomplice both times. Precisely, Marcus agreed. Now, we have not one, but two mystery players, the killer and his accomplice who facilitated the disposal of evidence. This is no longer just about who shot Amara Diallo. It's about who knows her killer and who's willing to shield him. As Marcus finished speaking, the phone on Eli's desk rang again. It was a man named Quentin Travers, and his voice was agitated. He said he's a concert promoter, detective. He's got something found something of a... Chapter 3. The Ghost of a Party. The phone call from Quentin Travers, the concert promoter, added another bizarre twist to the rapidly unraveling narrative of Amara Diallo's final hours. Eli took the call, Marcus listening intently on speaker. Detective Vance, my name's Quentin Travers, but everyone just calls me Q. The man's voice crackled with a mix of civic responsibility and nervous excitement. I've been following the news about that poor girl, Amara Diallo. Just terrible. And, well, I think I found something that belongs to her. The very night Amara had told her mother she was attending a party. The guy who owns the warehouse calls me, says he found an ID card. One of your people from your party, he says, dropped it well. I went over there, picked it up. And then I saw the name Amara Diallo. And then I heard the news, just thought I should call you guys. Mr. Travers, where is that ID now? Marcus interjected, his voice firm. Right here. Sergeant. I brought it straight to the precinct. Didn't touch it too much. Just grabbed it with a napkin. I figured it was important. A few minutes later, Q Travers, a burly man with a nervous energy, placed a sealed plastic bag containing Amara Diallo's driver's license on Marcus's desk. As they carefully examined it, a grim detail jumped out. A dark, dried smear, unmistakably blood, marred the bottom corner of the card. Not only is it her ID, Marcus observed, his voice tight, it's smeared with her blood, or at least, blood from the scene. Eli carefully logged the ID into evidence, noting the exact position of the bloodstain. This solidifies the timeline. Amara was at this party late on Saturday night, so the likelihood is high that the shooting occurs either at the party location or in its immediate vicinity. And somehow, in the chaos, her ID card, with fresh blood on it, falls out of her pocket or her car and gets left behind. Or deliberately discarded in the rush, Marcus added. Either way, the party is now ground zero. Our immediate focus shifts. We need to canvass that warehouse district, speak to the owner, get a list of attendees if possible. Any surveillance around that property, the identity of the person who found this, and didn't initially recognize it as Amara's before the news broke, is still a mystery. Who are they, and what did they want with this young woman? The investigation pivoted with the precision of a practiced choreography. Marcus and Eli were now convinced that Amara Diallo was murdered by someone she knew, someone connected intimately enough to her to share space at a party. The robbery theory was fully dismissed. The next logical step was to retrace Amara's footsteps backwards from the party and forwards to her death. Their journey into Amara's life led them to the Catalyst radio station, the vibrant online platform where Amara had cultivated her dreams. The station's office, a converted storefront buzzing with youthful energy and the eclectic beats of independent music, was a stark contrast to the grim crime scenes they were accustomed to. They spoke with Dorian Holt, the general manager of Catalyst Air, a man with a booming laugh and an infectious enthusiasm for his work. When they introduced themselves and the purpose of their visit, a pall descended over Holt's face. Amara Diallo. Oh, man, that was my girl, Dorian said, shaking his head in disbelief, grief etched in the lines around his eyes. She was going to be a star, had a national following. I swear it. You're listening to Emerald City's leading internet radio show. That was her tagline. She had it. That radio voice. That personality. The real deal. Dorian's admiration for Amara was clear and heartfelt. As they discussed her career and her aspirations, Dorian inadvertently provided a crucial piece of information. She was a go-getter, always pushing for more, Dorian recalled. Even though, frankly, he didn't have her natural charisma. Marcus and Eli exchanged a look. Elias Sterling. This was the first time they'd heard that name. A new, potential key player in Amara's life. Do you believe in generational curses? And if so, they'd discuss music, lifestyle, Dorian continued, describing Elias's contributions to the show. But Amara was always a force. She was going to make sure she did what she needed to do to get where she wanted to be, and that made him jealous. I think he didn't like it. He certainly didn't generate the same kind of popularity or audience engagement that Amara did. Dorian then recounted an incident that highlighted the simmering tensions between Amara and Elias. Amara, ever the innovator, had invited another talented female host to co-host one of her segments, aiming to create a collaborative and empowering discussion. When Elias found out about this, he just went wild. Dorian recounted, shaking his head, went into a complete rage, started yelling, really degrading stuff. On air, mind you. That was the end of his radio career here. I couldn't have that kind of personality on the air, jeopardizing everything Amara had built up. Marcus's mind turned the new data point over. Jealousy, rage, could an inflated ego, a bruised male pride over fan loyalty, really escalate to murder? Elias, is it the fan thing, or is it something else? Let's find out exactly who you are, Elias, Eli murmured, already reaching for his phone, and see what you've been up to in your life. A name, Elias Sterling. They finally had a new target, a new direction. A simple search of the state's criminal records database for Elias Sterling yielded immediate and shocking results. Marcus and Eli, hunched over the computer screen in their office, felt a chill deeper than the air conditioning could provide. Eli, come check this out, Marcus said, his voice unusually strained. The digital file that materialized before them outlined a past so grim, so profoundly disturbing, that it stopped them dead in their tracks. Elias Sterling, date of birth, January 17th. Criminal history. 1992. Convicted of murder. Received a sentence of 45 years in the state penitentiary. Parole. Released on parole in 2010 after serving approximately 18 years of his sentence. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Elias Sterling wasn't just a possessive, jealous boyfriend. He was a convicted murderer. A man who had already taken a life, served a portion of his time, and been granted freedom, only to potentially repeat the heinous act. 45 years for murder, and some parole board for some unknown reason releases him after 8, Marcus stated, the incredulity evident in his voice. His gaze hardened. Well, Elias, you seemed like a charming fellow, Kumba Amara. What are you doing with this thug? It was a question Marcus had seen countless times in his career. The allure of the bad boy, the wild and free type. It was a tragically common draw, especially for young women. And the trouble with bad boys, Marcus knew all too well, was that they often did bad things. This wasn't just a possibility. It was a probability backed by precedent. We don't have enough for a warrant yet, Eli said, pulling Marcus from his thoughts, grappling with the stark reality. Right now, everything is still circumstantial. We have a motive, a connection, a history of violence, but no direct evidence, placing him at the scene or linking him directly to Amara's death or the car. Eli, you keep looking. You keep moving forward. The case isn't solved until we have enough to make an arrest stick. Their thoughts immediately turned to the Arcadian Sentinel captured in the Greater Trinity University surveillance footage. The mysterious second vehicle that had dropped off and picked up the compact Zenith driver. The surveillance tapes show that dark Arcadian Sentinel, Eli recalled. If Elias had an accomplice, it was likely someone close, a family member, a friend. Marcus pulled up the vehicle registration database. Let's run a registration check on Arcadian Sentinels. That might be associated with the Sterling family. Immediate family. Who in his circle drives that kind of car? The answer was immediate, chillingly direct. The name on the registration record for a dark Arcadian Sentinel, registered within Emerald City, was Letitia Sterling. Relationship, daughter of Elias Sterling. Well, Elias Marcus murmured, a grim satisfaction in his voice. Things have just gotten a whole lot more interesting. Letitia Sterling at the scene. This plays not only Elias Sterling but his own daughter potentially involved in the destruction of evidence. The accomplice, the conspiracy thickened. As Marcus processed this new development, the phone on Eli's desk rang again. The caller ID was blocked. Eli hesitated, then answered. Detective Vance, Eli said, his voice cautious. Are you the detective working the Amara Diallo case? A man's voice, raspy with barely suppressed panic, whispered through the line. Eli motioned for Marcus to put him on speaker. I know what you're looking for, Darian continued, his voice trembling. And I can help, but you gotta be quick. I don't want nobody seeing me talk to you, especially not Elias. He's dangerous. Eli remained calm, though his heart hammered. All right, Darian, take a deep breath. Tell me what you know. Darian began his frantic confession. He said that very late on July 2nd, the night of Amara's murder, he was over at his sister Rochelle's house, also in the Southgate district. Suddenly, Elias showed up. He was wild, Darian recounted, his voice catching. Eli scribbled furiously, his mind racing to connect the pieces. The argument at the party, the physical altercation, the hurried change of clothes, Elias Sterling's scratches and blood-stained attire. A jolt of electricity ran through Marcus and Eli. Blood-stained boots. Direct evidence. Tangible proof. Darian, Marcus said, taking over the call, his voice low and authoritative, cutting through Darian's panic. Touch those boots. Leave them exactly where they are. Okay, Darian stammered, giving the address, then adding a desperate plea. But you gotta understand, man, there's an intelligence network out here, in the underground. People hear things. Who's talking? They're interested in helping the victim, not snitch. You get me? Marcus understood, and perhaps a fleeting moral pang for Amara. He knew the boots would be a betrayal to his cousin, but the terror of remaining silent, of being caught up in Ilias's violence, outweighed that. We get you, Darian, Marcus assured him. Stay put, don't touch a thing. We're on our way. The hunt for Elias Sterling had just shifted into overdrive. The game was no longer theoretical. It was about to become very real. Chapter 4. The Predator's Tracks. Marcus and Eli sped towards Rochelle Sterling's address in the Southgate district, the urgency in Darian's voice still echoing in the confined space of the patrol car. They arrived at a modest home, indistinguishable from the others on the quiet street. His sister, Rochelle, a weary-looking woman, stood a few paces behind him, her face a mask of resigned worry. The fear radiating from both was palpable. There in the garage, Detective Darian whispered, leading them to a detached garage behind the house. Just like I said, brown, kind of muddy. Inside the garage, tucked almost deliberately out of sight, behind a stack of old tires, sat a pair of heavy, brown work boots. Marcus donned a fresh pair of forensic gloves. Yeah, that looks like blood. All right, Marcus confirmed. The words grim, he signaled to Eli. Eli, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him, photographed the boots meticulously, noting their exact position, before carefully placing them into a pristine evidence bag. This was it. A direct, physical link. They spent another hour interviewing Darian and Rochelle, but their information was largely corroborative of Darian's initial call, offering little more in the way of new detail beyond the specific events surrounding Elias's arrival. They painted a picture of Elias as volatile, manipulative, and someone they both feared. As soon as they were back in the patrol car, Eli made the call to forensic services. Detective Vance, homicide. I need a rush on some evidence. A pair of boots, possibly stained with human blood, potentially from our Amara Diallo homicide. The forensic team, aware of the high-profile nature of the case, responded with swift efficiency. The wait was agonizing, each minute stretching into an eternity. Hours later, as dusk settled over Emerald City, Eli's phone finally rang. It was the forensics lab. Confirmed positive for human blood. Eli let out a long, slow breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. You're positive, Dr. Chun. 100%. Detective, it's her blood. Eli immediately called Marcus, who was reviewing other case files. Sergeant, we got a hit. It's Amara's blood on Elias Sterling's boots. Positive ID for blood. And the DNA. Marcus's reaction was immediate and decisive. All right, Eli, this is it. This is what we needed. I'm calling the district attorney's office right now. Get a search warrant drafted for Sterling's last known residence, and an arrest warrant for a first-degree murder for Elias Sterling. The DA's office, presented with the overwhelming evidence sheet, the prior murder conviction, the eyewitness testimony from Darian, the surveillance footage, and now, irrefutable DNA linking Sterling's property directly to the victims. Blood quickly authorized the warrants. The legal hurdle was cleared. But where was Elias Sterling? Their primary suspect was now a wanted man, but still very much in the wind. Marcus's thoughts turned to Letitia Sterling, Ilias's daughter, the registered owner of the Arcadian Sentinel captured in the Greater Trinity University surveillance footage. The vehicle that had chauffeured the killer away from the burning compact Zenith. Eli Letitia Sterling, Marcus stated, grabbing the Warren forms. She needs to be brought in for questioning. Now, we know her car was at that scene, and she picked up her father, or someone matching his description. What does she have to say about that, Letitia? The interrogation of Letitia Sterling, now arrested under suspicion of being an accessory after the fact to Amara Diallo's murder, was a crucial turning point. Marcus, recognizing Eli's growth and the importance of allowing a junior detective to develop their own skills, stepped back, allowing Eli to take the lead. Marcus sat quietly in the observation room, watching through the one-way glass, ready to intervene if necessary, but trusting Eli's instincts. Eli sat opposite Letitia Sterling in the sparse, sterile interview room. Letitia, a young woman in her mid-20s, looked wary, and defensive. Her facial expression was a blank slate, but her tightly clasped hands and darting eyes betrayed her internal turmoil. "Miss Sterling," Eli began, his voice calm, even empathetic, a stark contrast to the thumping adrenaline in his veins. He remembered Marcus's earlier advice: establish a relationship, no matter how brief or adversarial. "My name is Detective Vance. We need to talk about your father, Elias Sterling, and what happened to Amara Diallo." Letitia's jaw tightened. "I don't know nothing about no Amara, and my father, he's got nothing to do with this." "Miss Sterling, we have footage from Greater Trinity University, footage of a dark Arcadian Sentinel, registered to you, picking up the individual who dumped and set fire to Amara Diallo's compact Zenith. This was in the early hours of July 4th, and then returning on July 5th to check on the burned vehicle." Eli let the weight of that statement hang in the air. Letitia's eyes flickered, her carefully constructed composure cracking slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. My dad he wouldn't do something like that." Eli pressed gently, shifting the focus to family dynamics. "Miss Sterling, can you tell me about your relationship with your father? Are you close?" He's been away for a long time. In prison, so, no, not really close." Eli registered the partial admission, a small victory. "Have you tried to get close since he got out?" "Not really. He's difficult. Always has been." "Do you think he's capable of hurting somebody, Letitia?" Eli asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Letitia recoiled slightly, a raw truth in her eyes. "Well, I mean, yeah, he can hurt somebody. He's got a temper. He's strong." "Do you think he may have hurt Amara D?" She stared at the table, refusing to meet his gaze. "They had arguments. Yeah. Always arguing. But what they do behind closed doors, that's what they do behind closed doors." It was a deflection, but Eli saw a hint of internal struggle. She wasn't denying his capability. Eli then brought up the compact Zenith, the vehicle burned across from the university. "We have your car, Miss Sterling, picking up someone matching your father's description right after Amara's car was set on fire." Letitia's shoulders slumped. The pressure was building. "Said he'd done something stupid and needed me to take him to the Greater Trinity campus. I thought he was just messed up. Drunk, I drove him. He got out of my car, walked over to that little blue car, and then came back to mine, and we left. I just dropped him off at his place." Eli leaned forward, his voice a quiet probe. "You didn't see him burn the car or anything like that, did you?" Letitia didn't confess to witnessing the arson, but the admission was damning enough. She placed her father, Elias Sterling, directly at the scene, moments before Amara Diallo's car erupted in flames. She had knowingly, or unknowingly, facilitated his escape from a crime. In the observation room, Marcus nodded slowly, a slight smile playing on his lips. Eli had done it. He'd navigated Letitia's hostility, her evasiveness, and extracted crucial, inadvertently damaging information about her father. It was a textbook example of the art of interrogation, slowly peeling back layers of denial. "That's good, Eli. Very good." Marcus spoke into his headset, the mic picking up his voice for Eli to hear through the earpiece. "She's placed her father at the scene of the evidence destruction. We've got her on accessory after the fact, or at the very least, lying to a peace officer." Letitia Sterling was placed into custody. The accomplice had been identified, a small victory in a rapidly escalating search. But Elias Sterling, the primary suspect, the proven killer, was still at large, still in the wind. The net had tightened, but the predator remained free. Chapter 5. The Web of Lies. Marcus and Eli redirected their efforts towards strengthening the murder case. What exactly pushed Elias Sterling to kill Amara D? They had theories: jealousy, possessiveness, an innate volatility stemming from his past, but they needed concrete details. Marcus knew that despite Sterling's sociopathic tendencies, people always left traces. They had already interviewed Amara's family and Dorian Holt from Catalyst Air. Now they needed to delve deeper into Amara's closest circle of friends, someone who knew the intimate details of Amara and Elias's relationship. Marcus remembered a name that had come up in Amara's social media profiles: Amara's best friend. Eli took the lead on interviewing Elias. He found her heartbroken but resolute. But then, a cloud darkened her features as she began to discuss Elias. Amara, she and I were very good friends, Aaliyah began, her voice cracking. We talked about everything, and she used to confide in me about Elias. I never understood why she associated with someone like him. He just seemed wrong. Aaliyah then provided the missing puzzle piece that solidified the motive, shattering the remaining ambiguities. Originally, he told us, Aaliyah recounted, her eyes filled with a fresh wave of anger. The reason he went to jail was because he did a robbery, that he took the fall for some associate. A good friend, you know, played the tough guy, but Lord, Amara, she was drawn to that. She believed in him. Elias Sterling had spun a web of carefully crafted lies, painting himself as a noble, misguided individual, rather than a convicted murderer. It was a classic manipulative tactic. But Amara, she started to find out the truth. Aaliyah continued, her voice gaining strength. She told me, Aaliyah Leroy's not the guy I thought he was. He lied to me. I gotta find a way out from under this dude. For real. For real. The man told her a lie, a fundamental lie about his past, and he couldn't keep up with it. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying clarity. Amara knew Elias had been to prison. She had accepted that, perhaps seeing it as part of his bad boy allure. But in the last few days before her death, she had discovered the brutal truth. His prior conviction wasn't for robbery or burglary, it was for murder. That's pretty powerful, Detective Alias stated, looking directly at Eli, conveying the gravity of this revelation. To find out the man you're with, the man you trust, has been in prison not for a fall guy robbery. It changes your perception of him, of your own safety. I keep hearing about all the stuff that happened with him in jail. And Amara, she told me something. Something whispered in the wind. She came to me, all hushed. She said, Alia, I think he swung the other way in there. I was like, what do you mean, girl? And she was like, I heard something. I think he was sleeping with men. The final, devastating layer of the onion was peeled back. There were rumors circulating about Amara confronting Sterling about his sexual history in prison. Would have been ignited by such a personal, emasculating accusation. So you begin to unravel the onion, Marcus observed from the observation room, a grim assessment in his voice. You pull away one layer after another. Who are you, Elias? And what pushed your buttons to the point where your girlfriend wound up dead? The motive was no longer vague jealousy. It was a complex, explosive cocktail of ego, manipulation, exposed lies. This was a time bomb, waiting for the right moment to detonate. We also believe Elias was pretty pissed, Eli said, concluding his report to Marcus. That kind of exposure, after lying about his criminal past for a man like Sterling. This was a time bomb ready to explode. Now, they knew the why. All that remained was the who and the how for the courtroom. He was a predator in the wind, a ticking time bomb whose next victim could be anyone. With arrest warrants issued for first-degree murder, the hunt for Elias Sterling intensified. Patrol units across Emerald City were briefed, photographs of Sterling disseminated, and informants activated. Where their mama was, or sometimes to their main squeeze, who might hide them or help them because no one else would. And true to form, a week after the murder, a tip came in from an anonymous informant. Elias Sterling had been seen in the vicinity of a commercial district in Northwood, stepping out of his mother's car. It was an ordinary Monday morning, but for Elias, it was the end of his fleeting freedom. A task force of plainclothes officers, Marcus and Eli among them, descended on the area with practiced stealth. They positioned themselves, a network of watchful eyes, surrounding the suspected location. The informant's tip described a blue compact sedan, and soon enough, an older model blue compact sedan pulled into a small strip mall parking lot. An elderly woman, unmistakable as Elias's mother, was behind the wheel. emerged from the passenger's side, casually scanning his surroundings before turning to speak to his mother through the open window. "That's him," Eli whispered, pointing. "All right, team, go." Before Sterling could react, before he could process the sudden shift in the air, the task force moved. In a blur of movement, 3 officers, their badges flashing, were upon him. "Shut your hands. Back up towards me. Get on the ground." The commands ripped through the air, sharp and unyielding. Sterling, for all his perceived cunning, was caught completely by surprise. He barely had time to register the faces before he was bodily spun around, hands forced behind his back, slammed against the side of his mother's car, and quickly secured in handcuffs. "Elias Sterling, you are under arrest for the murder of Amara D," Marcus declared, his voice cutting through the startled cries of his mother. Sterling, disoriented, seemed to deflate. He offered no resistance. He was taken into custody without incident, loaded into a waiting unmarked police vehicle, his future now sealed. "What's over there? Why? Why are you doing this?" his mother wailed, distraught, but the officers, regretfully, had to ignore her pleas. In the back of the car, Sterling sat in stone-faced silence. Marcus leaned into the window, his gaze locking with Sterling's. "Hey, Elias. I'm Marcus. This is Eli. You did something really, really bad, and you know that. I've been doing this game a long time, so I'm not going to waste your time. You had to go see Mom, didn't you, Elias? Now it's your turn to go see a judge." He tapped the roof of the car. "We want to hear your story. What happened on that weekend of July 4th? The psychological battle was about to begin. Chapter 6. The Unspoken Confession. Elias Sterling sat opposite Marcus Thorne in the sterile confines of Interview Room 3. Eli Vance sat silently beside Marcus, notebook open, meticulously observing every twitch, every micro-expression. Sterling, now in standard Jaliscio orange, projected an aura of chilling calm, an almost placid indifference. He was a sociopath. Marcus instantly recognized. The best approach with someone like Sterling was not to coax, not to cajole, but to dismantle. To lay out the case, brick by agonizing brick, until even a hardened killer understood the futility of denial. "Elias," Marcus began, his voice low, conversational, yet imbued with an unwavering authority. "We're not here to guess. We're here because we know what happened on July 2nd and 3rd, the early hours. We know about Amara, and we know you were there." Sterling remained impassive, his eyes betraying nothing. "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything to Amara." "You claim you loved her, Elias, but you brutally murdered her," Marcus countered, cutting through the pretense. Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his gaze unblinking. "We have your boots, Elias. The brown ones you left at your sister Rochelle's house. The ones Darian told us about. We found Amara's blood on those boots. Her DNA, Elias, on your property. How do we explain that?" Sterling's composure wavered for a fraction of a second, a fleeting flicker of surprise. Quickly masked, he just shrugged, a non-committal gesture. "I don't know. Maybe it got on there somehow. And that blood, Elias, that DNA," Marcus continued. "Our forensic teams found your DNA as well, mixed with hers." Eli jotted down the details, the evidence stacking up. "Then, we have her car, the blue compact Zenith." Marcus pressed on, watching Sterling for any reaction. "We found it, burned out. More blood, more DNA yours, mixed with Amara." He let that sink in, allowing the gravity of the evidence to press down on the killer. "We have your daughter, the registered owner of that dark Arcadian Sentinel. And guess what, Elias? We have video. Clear, unambiguous surveillance footage of your daughter's car dropping you off at that. A big flash, a big burst. Amara's car, up in flames." Marcus paused, letting the silence magnify the damning weight of his words. "We have the boots. We have your DNA. We have her car. We have video. We have the motive. Elias, the revelation that you lied about your murder conviction. That Amara was trying to break away from you. The humiliating rumors about your time in prison that she found out. It all leads to one logical conclusion. Right to you. We have enough. Enough for a jury to convict." He took a whiteboard marker and slowly, deliberately, wrote out a partial word on the small whiteboard in the room. MU_DER. "Elias," Marcus said, turning back to him, his voice steady. Look at that board right there. Look at that word. What letter are we missing, Elias? Sterling stared at the board, then at Marcus. An R, Marcus confirmed, his voice resonating with authority. Right? And you're intelligent enough to look at that and say, man, looks like murder. It's just missing one letter. Spells like murder. Everything leads to you. We're just missing one final piece. The story, your story, and you can provide that piece. Or we allow the narrative of the evidence to stand, and allow a jury, a grand jury, then a trial jury to come to their own conclusion. Marcus gestured to the empty space where the R should be. A jury can look at all of this your violence past, the jealousy, the exposed lies, a cold-blooded killer. He then offered the smallest crack, a sliver of perceived hope that he knew a narcissist might latch onto. The only thing that could change that, Elias, is this blank. What is your story? Because if your story tells one that you were scared, that it was an accident, that you were just upset, whatever it may be, it may not be murder. But you're able to argue through your defense attorney for self-defense, or whatever it may be. Do you follow me on that, Elias? He was weighing his options. Yes, sir. I understand exactly what you're saying. Okay, Marcus continued, pressing the advantage, though without raising his voice. Because you were able to figure out what this word meant, even with a missing letter. You're telling me, no matter what, we're going to leave it the way it is right there. We're going to allow a grand jury, a judge, whatever you choose, to listen to the facts that we have. And they're going to look and say, is this man credible? Or are all these people, all this evidence, credible? We haven't lied to you at all about any of this stuff, Elias. We've been straight up. Sterling just sat there, quiet, processing, his sociopathic mind running calculations. Then, a slow, contemptuous smile spread across his face. Thank you, but I really know I didn't do this. I didn't do any of those things. I'm innocent. He denied all of it. He didn't confess. Marcus had not expected him to. He thought he was smarter than anyone in the room, smarter than the evidence, smarter than justice itself. He's not as smart as the chair he's sitting in, Marcus later told Eli, shaking his head, but he thinks he is. That's the real danger, the real hubris. Marcus and Eli left the interrogation room, the non-confession confirming Sterling's character, but the overwhelming evidence painting an unassailable picture of guilt. They had what they needed. In the quiet aftermath of the non-confession, fueled by the accumulation of evidence and testimony, they pieced together the fragments, creating a seamless narrative of betrayal and brutal violence. They believed that, on the night of Saturday, July 2nd, shortly after 11 o'clock, the Catalyst Airwave party at the warehouse, a public place, was her chosen arena for a confrontation she likely hoped would be contained. She had discovered his lies, confronted him about his past, and was seeking her freedom. Coming over here thinking we're going to break up. They could almost hear Sterling's furious retort. Amara was breaking up with him, and his fragile ego, already shattered by the revelations, could not endure this final humiliation. Amara, desperate to escape, turned to leave. Yo, hold up. No. Go home. Stop. Stop. Give me my purse. The initial struggle, Amara trying to break free. Go home. Hey, I'm serious. Get in this car. Sterling, his patience evaporated, pulls out a pistol, a cold, metallic threat against her rising defiance. Elias, stop! Stop! A physical fight ensues, the marks of which later visible as scratches on Elias's face, noted by They believe he then forced her into her own blue compact Zenith. It's too late. Get in. Get in the car. Holding her at gunpoint, Elias drove Amara to the secluded stretch of Willow Creek Park. There, in the terrifying darkness, he ended her life with a single gunshot to the back of the head. He stole from the world everything that Amara could bring to it. It's Amara, who could have done so much with her life. The thought was a quiet lament for Marcus. In a fit of panic and desperation, Elias dragged her body from the car, abandoning it by the creek. Driven by a primal urge to cover his tracks, he made a series of critical, impulsive mistakes. He drove directly to his sister Rochelle's house, demanding a change of clothes from his cousin Darian, leaving his own blood-stained boots behind. Later, he drove Amara's car to the Greater Trinity University campus, an attempt to distance himself from the murder vehicle. Then, in the early hours of the 4th of July, he called his daughter, Letitia, for a ride, tasking her with facilitating his escape from the scene of the abandoned vehicle. As revealed by the surveillance footage, he torched Amara's car, transforming it into a funeral pyre for the evidence. His daughter unknowingly complicit in the car. The car got torched, but the traces of his panicked destruction, from the incomplete burn to the damning DNA, would remain. They make mistakes, 100 mistakes, maybe even 1,000. They dump a body in a residential neighborhood, thinking no one will ever find it, thinking the sunrise will erase all traces, but it doesn't make sense, and it never works. Elias Sterling went to trial, pleading not guilty. In his twisted perception, he wasn't guilty. Amara had insulted him. She had humiliated him. You don't do that. Not to a man like him. His arrogance was his undoing. Presented a mountain of irrefutable evidence. Amara Diallo's bloody ID card from the party. Establishing the timeline. Dorian Holt's testimony about Sterling's rage and jealousy. The damning discovery of Sterling's prior murder, conviction, and parole. Darian Sterling's emotional account of his cousin's blood-stained arrival. The boots, carrying Amara's DNA, directly linking Elias to the murder. The surveillance footage. Letitia Sterling's reluctantly elicited admission, placing her father with the burning car. Revealing the true depth of Elias's lies, and the devastating motive. The defense attorney argued for self-defense, for accidental discharge, for reasonable doubt, but the sheer weight of the facts was insurmountable. Marcus, Eli, and the entire team sat through the proceedings, their faces impassive, a quiet resolve in their eyes. When the trial concluded, the jury, after swift deliberations, found Elias Sterling guilty of first-degree murder, unanimously. The judge, reflecting the gravity of the crime and the defendant's chilling criminal history, handed down the maximum sentence, life without parole in the Texas State Penitentiary system. Elias Sterling, the two-time killer, the monster, would remain behind bars, stripped of his freedom, his manipulative genius finally rendered imp. In the quiet months following the trial, a bittersweet victory hung heavy in the air. Justice had been served, but at an unspeakable cost. Amara Diallo's mother, Aminata, offered a final, powerful sentiment. Her eyes, still filled with unshed tears, held a fierce resolve. I just want to say something to Elias Sterling. I hope he hears it. I hope that they don't give him the death penalty. Live with knowing what he did, and die knowing it. The tragic narrative of Amara Diallo became a stark, devastating lesson in the dangers of domestic violence. As Marcus often reflected, it's a grim pattern, when a woman finally decides, this is it. And for Amara, seeking freedom from Elias Sterling's web of lies, it proved to be the deadliest time. If they paroled Leroy Elias, Eli mused later, back in their quiet office, thinking of Sterling's early release. If he'd never been let out, changing lives. Doda Amara's brother echoed the sentiment in his own words. When he took her, he took a lot from a lot of people. He took away a sweet person. This girl, she would, oh my God, she was just amazing. Marcus Thorne and Eli Vance had not gotten a confession in this case. Hardly anyone ever did, especially not from sociopaths like Elias Sterling. But that wasn't the point. The point was that they had conducted a thorough, professional investigation. They had sifted through the debris of a broken life, deciphered the whispers of a silenced crime scene. They ensured the person responsible for the tragic killing of Amara Diallo was arrested, convicted, and sentenced. A meticulous, relentless pursuit of truth in the face of chilling evil. The sociopath, Elias Sterling, in action. Amara Diallo, who had only wanted to live her life, to inspire, to soar. And she paid the ultimate price. But because of Marcus Thorne, Eli Vance, and their relentless dedication, she found justice. Part 1. The Ghost in the Machine. The Murder of Arthur Hayes. Chapter 1. Crimson Bay Morning. The morning sun, struggling to pierce the coastal fog clinging to Port Navarro, California, did little to soothe Eleanor Vance's frazzled nerves. It was a Saturday, June 25, 2016, a day meant for errands and the benign chaos of family life. But for Eleanor, an undercurrent of unease had been simmering all day. She'd been out since navigating the labyrinthine aisles of big-box stores with her two youngest, Chloe and Liam, their boisterous energy barely contained. Port Navarro, a sprawling town of roughly 130,000 residents northeast of the glittering hub of San Francisco, was a tapestry of quiet bedroom communities and pockets of grittier urban sprawl. Their neighborhood, while generally calm, abutted areas known for a different kind of bustle. They were just unloading the last of the shopping bags from the minivan into the kitchen when the ordinary shattered. Eleanor, balancing a carton of milk and a bag of groceries, heard at first a sound that, even now, years later, reverberated in her nightmares. Chloe, her spirited 7-year-old daughter, let out a piercing scream from deeper within the house. "Mom, what is going on?" The pure, unadulterated terror in her child's voice froze Eleanor in her tracks. Liam, her 4-year-old son, then stumbled into the kitchen, his small face pale and twisted with an expression Eleanor had never seen, a blank, horrified stare. His tiny finger pointed, trembling, towards the hallway. "Mom, there's blood everywhere." His voice was a thin, reedy whisper, devoid of its usual playful cheer. Eleanor's blood ran cold. The groceries clattered to the floor. "Forgotten. Stay right there," she choked out, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She didn't dare go further inside. Her instinct, primal and absolute, was to protect her children. The cold plastic suddenly feeling alien in her hand. The chill of the fog seemed to intensify, wrapping around her in a suffocating embrace. Dialing 911, her voice rose in a frantic, hysterical shriek. "What's the emergency, ma'am?" Amara, is he alive?" The name of her husband, Arthur Hayes, tore from her throat. Her mind was a whirlwind of disjointed images. Arthur's solid presence, his unwavering, if sometimes gruff affection, the constant hum of their complicated life. She couldn't process the sudden vacuum his absence implied. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Who is Amara? Can you tell me what happened?" Her breath hitched, ragged and uncontrolled. The dispatcher was trying to talk her through it, guiding her, but the words were a muffled jumble in her terror-stricken mind. "The officers are driving there as fast as they can." "Okay, ma'am. Can you tell me what you see from where you are?" "I'm scared. What do I do? What do I do?" She was too consumed by her own unraveling horror to truly comprehend the full scope of what had befallen, and when she finally did, she would be irrevocably, utterly broken. I was across town, enjoying a rare quiet afternoon, when my call sign, Crimson 422, crackled over the airwaves. "My name is Detective Sergeant Maxwell Max Riley, and in 2016, I was working violent crimes for the Port Navarro Police Department's Homicide Bureau." The dispatcher's voice was clipped, concise. "A medical call," they said. Not many details, just an address in the East End of Port Navarro, and a note about an unresponsive male. Medical calls could be anything. Of course, a heart attack, a nasty fall, a stroke. As I navigated the familiar streets, the siren of the responding patrol unit screaming ahead of me, I felt that familiar tightening in my gut. My mind ran through the usual list of scenarios, mentally preparing for the unexpected. When I arrived at the address on Cypress Lane, the scene was already in disarray. A patrol unit and an ambulance were present, their lights painting the suburban facade in a swirling tableau of red and blue. The house itself looked perfectly normal from the outside, a neat, if unassuming, single-story home with a small, manicured lawn, the perfect picture of suburban anonymity. But the family, Eleanor Vance and her 2 terrified children, were huddled on the sidewalk outside, clutching each other, their faces pale and tears. No one, absolutely no one, wanted to go back into the house. The sight sent a prickle down my spine. This wasn't just an accident. What was I walking into? "Ma'am, what's going on?" Officer Miller, one of the first responders, was trying to gather information from Eleanor, but she was still largely incoherent, her body trembling with uncontrolled fear. I pulled on my gloves, adjusting my sidearm, the familiar way to cold comfort. My mind, a database of past horrors, went on alert. With a nod to Officer Miller, I walked towards the open front door, a subtle scent, metallic and vaguely sweet, growing stronger with each step. "Mr. Hayes," I called out, my voice deep, resonant, designed to elicit a response. The interior of the house was a sharp contrast to its demure exterior. It wasn't a scene of overt chaos or destruction, but rather a profound state of disarray. Dishes piled high in the sink, stale food odors lingering, clothes strewn haphazardly across furniture. It felt less like a carefully staged home, and more like a space that had been relentlessly lived in, with little time or care for tidiness. There's just stuff everywhere, scattered throughout, I'd observe later, thinking that this was simply the family's established living condition, not the result of a struggle or ransacking. I rounded the corner from the entryway, my hand already instinctively gripping my weapon, and moved towards the kitchen, and that's when I saw him. Jesus. Arthur Hayes lay on the linoleum floor, half slumped against the lower cabinets, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. His form was almost indistinguishable from the expansive, horrifying crimson pool that surrounded his head. But then, a slight, almost imperceptible movement of his chest, a faint, gurgling sound. He's breathing, just barely. "We got you, buddy. Hang in there." The initial 911 call, reporting an accident and a bleeding victim, had been standard. The assumption was an accidental fall. EMTs were on their way, or already here, geared for a domestic mishap. Officer Miller, who followed me in, seemed to share the initial assessment. "He must have hit his head on the counter or something," he muttered, his face pale. I was looking around, my eyes scanning, seeking a logical explanation for the magnitude of the wound. Did he have some type of sudden medical emergency, collapsing and striking his head on the unforgiving edge of the counter? I was trying to make sense of the grim tableau. They quickly began their assessment, preparing Arthur for transport. "We're going to transport him now," one of them said. And as we carefully raised him, my hand brushed against something on the inside of his shirt, near his back. Something small, metallic, and distinctly out of place. I pulled my hand back, frowning, and peered closer at the fabric. "There's no way," I murmured, disbelief warring with a sudden, terrible certainty. I bent closer, pulling the fabric taut, and then it clicked. The fragment wasn't from a household appliance or a piece of debris. "That's a bullet fragment," I announced, the words cutting through the urgency of the EMT's movement. My voice, usually calm, held an undeniable edge. Everyone stopped. The organized chaos of emergency response froze. The EMTs looked at me, confusion, then dawning horror in their eyes. Officer Miller took a step back, his jaw slack. This was no accident. This was murder, or attempted murder. Buzzing world of the emergency room, I barked into my radio. The quiet Saturday morning in Port Navarro had just detonated. Chapter 2, the .22 caliber conundrum. Corporal Alana Ramirez joined me on the scene an hour later, the sharp California sunlight now fully piercing through the remnants of the fog, casting stark, unsettling shadows across the newly taped-off crime scene. Alana, a corporal within the Port Navarro Police Department, was technically assigned to the Property Crimes Division. But I'd seen her work, her meticulous attention to detail, her dogged perseverance. She had raw potential, a hunger for understanding, and I wanted to immerse her in the volatile high-stakes world of homicide. This would be her first time as a lead investigator on my team, and I intended for her to learn by fire. Callie, Alana said, using the casual moniker she'd adopted for me, which I didn't mind. "I was told to meet you here. Max Riley, what have we got?" "Alana, welcome to the big leagues," I said, a grim humor in my voice. "Officer Miller can give you the rundown. Miller, take one." Officer Miller, looking shaken, gave Alana a quick briefing. Caucasian male, Arthur Hayes, found severely injured, single gunshot wound to the back of the head, alive, barely, but unresponsive. EMTS RN route to St. Jude's Medical Center. His wife and kids are still outside, pretty distraught. I met Alana's gaze. Alana nodded, her face set, already pulling out her notebook and pen. Her movements were fluid, deliberate. I did a walkthrough with her and Officer Miller, recounting my discovery of the bullet fragment. "It's not your cleanest house," I reiterated, my eyes scanning the scattered clothes, unwashed dishes, the general clutter, stuff everywhere. Initially, I just assumed this is how the family lived. Inside, it was a stark contrast, an almost casual chaos. We made our way into the kitchen, the air thick with the metallic temps of blood, mixed now with the antiseptic scents of the retreating paramedics. The scene was still horrific, even with Arthur gone. The linoleum was a stained, grim canvas of clotted blood, even traces of grayish matter that I knew to be brain tissue, starkly visible against the floor. Arthur Hayes was shot right in the threshold of the door, leading from the garage into the kitchen. I explained, gesturing. The blood pattern suggests he was walking this way, from the garage. He opens a door, takes a gunshot wound to the back of the head. It splatters some brain tissue and blood right here, by the doorframe. My eyes narrowed as I mentally recreated the scenario. I'm imagining where the shooter would have been standing. This gives us an indication of trajectory, and where the bullet might have traveled. As Alana processed this, her gaze, sharp and observant, drifted towards the adjacent living room. Her eyes widened slightly. There's a TV hanging on the wall there. The screen is cracked, right in the center. I followed her gaze, displayed a jagged starburst crack on its surface. You can tell it was a straightened hit, not a ricochet. Alana bent to examine it. Looks like a .22 caliber. Max. Is such a small hole. The discovery sent a peculiar chill through us both. 22 caliber, I repeated, the word hanging heavy in the air. Unique. 22s are usually plinking guns, target practice, small game, but a murder with a .22. The crime scene, stripped of the immediate emergency, spoke volumes, but its language was initially muddled. We began as all homicide investigations do, grappling with the unknown. What had truly happened here? We started to brainstorm. Could be a home invasion, a botched burglary, I offered, running through the possibilities. Arthur Street, while generally quiet, was indeed surrounded by areas notorious for drug activity and violence.